Monday, July 14th, Orleans Fire Rescue Building Committee. We are here in person and also online, and the connection for Zoom ID and phone are both noted online on the agenda. From my left, moving around, we have Chief Jeff Deering, Peter Canine, Rick Cianfilone. I'm David Little, Kathy McNamara, Emily Miller. We have Mark Reel, the Assistant Town Manager, and Laura St. John Dupuis, the Executive Assistant to the Town Manager's office. And just arriving now is Mark Matheson. So let's call the meeting to order, and the first item on our agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment? Okay, seeing none. The next agenda item is review previous fire rescue related studies, and I'm going to turn it over to Peter Canine, who was involved personally in those earlier studies, and please take it away, Peter.
All righty. This process has been going on for about 2 years now, since 2021. At that point, back in July of 2021, the selectmen decided that the Governor Prince was not to be considered for construction for the fire facility. In August, TGAS architects were hired to evaluate the existing fire station, and they produced an extensive study and basically came back with the opinion that it was there were just too many things wrong with the existing station to make it practical for a renovation. In October of 21, there was a special town meeting. $100,000 was approved for the feasibility study, and with the caveat that the middle school property was not to be considered. In January, we got together with the OES, and our first meeting was in February for the feasibility study committee. We proceeded with we were seeking at that point, one of the big issues was to find a location for a fire station, and we sought property owners that may have had some interest, or properties that were of interest, and there was no response to that. In April, we toured the Brewster, Chatham, and Hyannis fire stations, and that was extremely interesting in that we got to see basically what goes on the station, and there are an awful lot of things that are going on. It's a public facility, it's a first aid station, you have people of both sexes living there 24/7. You have heavy equipment. There's all kinds of, the mechanical systems seem to go on forever, along with the mechanical stuff, and electrical. And we, in interviewing the chiefs at all three locations, we kind of identified what seemed to be a kind of a simple issue, but for all three stations, they put together programs, they went to town meeting, and they all got shot down. They all wound up coming back a year or two later, and the results were they had smaller stations. They were a year later, And one thing that we basically wanted to get to was, we found it was very important to get this done right the first time. It's critical. It sounds kind of simplistic, but it is, for these projects to go back to town meeting, you only lose. I mean, there are a lot of soft costs that are involved that don't get recovered. You're a year later, and so that we found that was kind of a critical issue that we wanted to keep it to. In April, we reported back to the selectmen that the OES site adjoining the existing station was the only practical one, and we began to work with the OES over a period of months. And there was a lot of back and forth, I think where things kind of came off the track was when the agenda changed from a fire station to trying to preserve the existing building or accommodate, quote-unquote, all other uses on that site. I think that the OES, in my own personal opinion, was I think the OES kind of felt like they were blindsided because we went from a fire station with one building to, as things evolved, in order to have all other uses there, KBS, the architects, came up with basically a program that said we needed 3 structures. If we were going to have that type of use, whatever it was, the recommendation was that we were probably going to need a 2-story parking garage to accommodate 100 cars. I think at that point, I think the OES had basically said, hey, this is not what we were originally talking about. There were a lot of things that were added that weren't part of the original agenda, and at that point, I think we kind of lost our footing as far as being in agreement with, or coming to an agreement to use the acre site that we needed from the school committee. We finally went back to the selectmen. There were the architects looked at 2 other sites that the town owned. One being the Bay Ridge Lane property that the old DPW was on. The other was the site across the street from Town Hall. Neither of those really worked out that well. One of the key things was response time. And during the course of this, we had a study done, the so-called Centurion study, which basically looked at response times through town and what sites did work and didn't. As it turned out, Ground Zero, the perfect location for response times in Orleans, is where the police station is now. We're 800 to 1,000 feet away from that, so we, for all intents and purposes, we are in the best location as far as response times are concerned. That's critical. You can't change that. We could find, other properties, but if they're, the Bay Ridge Lane property was, basically that's almost in Brewster. That was going to add, I don't know how much time, but it certainly wasn't going to work as far as response time is concerned. We continued along and went back to the selectmen and basically said that we don't have a site. The OES had met with us and decided that they couldn't agree with the agenda that was being proposed. So at that point, we went back to the select board and said that there are no feasible sites The only thing that was really left for us to do was to renovate the existing station, which really nobody was recommending. Not only is the building not suited to a good renovation, but we would have to get out of there and create another temporary station someplace. They did that in Chatham, and they wound up, what they did there was, they wound up, all their equipment wound up at the DPW, and they located some temporary offices there. I don't know what that does for, we have the DPW building, and that's probably where the equipment will wind up going, where the admin and the rest of it goes, we don't know, but, to my recollection, I think we spent somewhere in the vicinity of $1 million or $1.5 million for the temporary police station facility here, so we're probably looking at, the same kind of thing. That's not productive. We don't get anything out of it. It goes away. So again, it's one more reason that the existing station doesn't work. There were several iterations of the designs from KBA, which were showing that we could build another station, a new station adjoining the existing station, and have that work. But of course, that does rely on the property, the 1 acre from the OES. So at this point, we're back to kind of zero, in that we either have no place to go, or we do pursue the campus thing. That does make sense, in that I think there are, it's obviously there are sites around there that could be acquired. There was some mention at one point of us going into executive session with the select board with the idea, I think, that eminent domain was going to be discussed. I think there was a pretty strong feeling for most of us that unless the eminent domain thing was completely friendly, it was going to cost millions of dollars and years worth of time. So that didn't seem to be worth pursuing. And I think that's maybe the long and short of it. Any questions? There's plenty of graphic stuff that's available. Were literally probably 8 or 10 different site plans and sketches. They did an extensive analysis with the fire department. We know pretty much what is needed. We were in the 30 to 35,000 square foot range for an ideal station. But again, that's going to need, in all likelihood, the OES property. Any questions? It's got to be.
Well, I'll start. So did you have a final is the final conclusion is that the fire station needs to go on the property where it's located and be built somewhat adjacent to the existing one?
There was some feeling that maybe going back to the middle school was worth it. One of the things that was expressed by the architects was it was best to get a flat site, and it was good to get the building as close to the street as you can, that's a very difficult thing to do with this site, unless we could, go towards the regional school property. But again, very early on, it was very, very clear that we were not to go there.
So were you involved in the campus design and layout? Was that part of your?
No.
It was
no.
not.
That came later
subsequent.
when I think the decision was to turn this into a campus and go back at it.
Has everybody reviewed the plans on site? I'm kind of curious. There's a plethora of information, and everything that Peter just talked about was on site and available to review. And then also the campus study, are we
Yeah,
all?
I've
pretty
looked
much-
at the different positions of where they're planning on putting the buildings. There were a few different options.
There
I
were
think was
several
about 3 or 4 options.
Right.
But this is news to me, that there's been nothing that's been sort of approved as far as the location is concerned.
So may I add to this, because I think it's important that we're not here as a committee to determine a location, other than our task is to utilize, by utilizing the property that's owned by the town, working with the Orleans Elementary School Committee to determine how we can site the fire rescue station there. And until something else changes, whether there's conversations pending between the select board and the Nauset Regional School District or other property owners in the area, we're not going to be here to discuss other locations. We're focusing on the Eldridge Park location where the fire rescue station is right now.
Understood. So that was the conclusion that Peter's committee essentially came to, and then the campus study just segued onto that. So we're focused on not even citing it at the elementary school location yet. We're focused on the building right now, is what you're saying?
Well, it's that location. It's on that property. I think that what's another piece that's important is that the campus study was to look at how you could potentially cite 3 different uses on that one property. Now, doesn't mean that what those options were laid out we're not tied to those options, right?
yes.
So
I get that.
that piece is important, and it's a resource for as we move forward, but it doesn't tie us to any of those options that were laid out in that process.
And one thing that I found interesting in reviewing the campus options was they seem to generate several options for the elementary school and the community center, but not so much so for the fire station.
That's
And,
good. I think that's good, that there's one spot, regardless of all the other places that the other buildings are gonna be. This way, when we do procure a designer, they can design for that one spot, and there's nothing up in the air, right? When we looked at those different studies, every single one of those options put the fire rescue building in the same exact place.
They did, but we still need to work with the elementary school committee, and I agree to the extent that it's the general location, but the specific location on the elementary school property, I don't think has been vetted thoroughly, and it can be explored more, is what I'm
So,
saying.
yeah, the campus plan was an exploration of potentials. And all of the drawings that were presented were just that, potentials, theoretical. This could go here, that could go there. If we wanted to try and get a third use for a community center on this property, here's how it could work, different iterations. And we have said repeatedly, none of those drawings that were presented were meant to be considered as anything final or specific. It's, oh, could we fit 3 buildings there if they were this size or that size, or where could it go, how could we change the fields, whatever. None of those drawings, even though the fire station was in approximately the same spot and all those things, that's not where the fire station's going, per se. We don't know how big the station's gonna be, we don't know where it's gonna go. That's what we need to look at now.
Okay.
So looking at that campus study, I mean, everybody was freaking out. It's, oh, it's gonna be 120 feet from the elementary school. No, it's not. It's not. Those drawings and iterations were hypotheticals, they were potentials, they were maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that. You know, so we're not bound in any way, shape, or form to what was produced in the campus plan as we look at what the station looks like, how big it's going to be, and where it's going to go. That's all virgin territory.
Thank you. No, that's very helpful.
Yeah, there's one other thing that I think about the campus plan and going at it the way we are right now. We, as the fire station, had we had a very specific list of issues that we had to cover. It seemed to me that the OES were trying to save as many possibilities for their future use as they could do, but there wasn't a specific agenda. But when we started to look at things, for example, we found that we could get a gravity sewer line to serve both of those sites from 6A. I don't know when sewers are going to be, down Eldridge Parkway, but that's kind of a critical issue. We covered that, and there were any number of other things that we could get together with. And I think if it's approached as, a long-term, a sustainable site, then I think everybody's concerns can be accommodated here, I think.
Can I add a couple things? First of all, I agree with what you guys are saying. We really need to make it clear to people that feasibility, we shouldn't even call it a plan. The feasibility study was just a study, and it's not a plan, like where that drawing was, right? So people are really confused about that, I think, including on this committee. So like citing the fire station there, it's not going there necessarily, right? We have to learn that's the best spot. I also, I was looking at this, the criterion study that you were talking about, the analysis of fire station location alternatives from 2022. And I'm just wondering, so 139 Main Street is right there, right?
Correct.
And the numbers on that look really good, and I was just wondering why it was ruled out.
I think it was, the site was a little too small for what we
Oh.
needed. We were told originally we need 3 to 4 acres to have this, properly happen. And I think, as I've mentioned before, the usual drift here is that these are 50-year facilities, and they're not. I think you need to look at this as a 25 or 30-year facility, but I think it has to have the ability to expand and accommodate, future changes, and whether that's
too small.
additions or whatever that is. I think that's the key thing. And again, a critical part of doing it as a campus study.
Sorry, a critical part of what?
As doing it as a campus, a campus with several different uses on the property.
It also-
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Emily, but in that same, in the second paragraph under that chart, the study references or says it's clear, however, from the analysis contained in this report, that the most advantageous location for a new fire rescue facility is in the area immediately surrounding the current facility.
Yeah, no, it just didn't really say why. I did read that. So I was just wondering, so you're saying it was too small?
Yeah, I think, yes.
Okay. Because it has significantly the most under 4-minute response times. More than every other place. I mean, I think, if I'm reading this right, I don't really know what fractal performance, but anyway, so that was my question. Less than 4 minutes, it has the most.
Canal Road, 28 Circle. So.
But that has only 67% under 4. I don't know. Anyway, that was,
There was a graphic. Did you see the graphic of
Yeah, the
how they
hot- the
tried
heat.
to fit?
yeah.
the
Oh,
image?
no, I didn't see that.
If you dive into the study a little bit more, there are graphics that showed that site. And
was too small.
It doesn't really fit.
Yeah, okay.
With the amount of new parking that's needed, and at least that was my take. Chief, do you have
Yeah,
anything to
if I
add?
recall that the 139 Main Street was too small of a site, and some of the citing of it, particularly in relation to the historical buildings, it made it complicated, and that ruled that part out.
Right, because this analysis did say they didn't take site factors into account. It was all location.
Yeah, under the criterion study, it was site or location
Location
only,
only, yeah.
not site-specific.
So then when it got
And
to the
If
next.
you were to go back to the Kessel Booz process there, that spoke more specifically to the sites.
Got it.
And the pluses and minuses of each site.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Peter? So, can we assume that we are working with the elementary school property for our charge moving forward, unless we hear differently from the select board that they may have come up with some additional space somewhere? Is that the way we should be
Yes.
moving forward? Thank you. Do we all understand that? Okay, I just think it's important that we're all on the same page here and move toward a common goal. Anything else?
I think we're in the process of procuring an OPM, and then right after that, we're in the process of procuring a designer. And if this isn't settled by the time we start to design, that's a problem.
Yes, it is. I mean, did anybody make a copy of the timeline of what was proposed?
The one that I saw was out of date.
Yeah,
So
that one, you
I
shouldn't
have,
even look at
that's-
that.
Okay. Well, it's just, I mean, yeah, we're really up against a crazy timeline here. And I think we need to be focused on that moving forward. There may be a chance the select board could come back to us and say, use a little bit of the ball field of the middle school. We don't know that yet.
Great.
But there is talk going on. But for the purposes of our committee, I think for now, we need to focus on the elementary school. If we get some bonus property that could add on to it, so much the better. But I think that would be,
So can I ask a follow-up question to that?
please.
Just for understanding this whole process, so does the school committee have to sign off on this plan, on the plan? Like, is that, because if it does, then we need to keep that in mind. How does this all work?
So this is town of Orleans land that is, the Orleans Elementary School is sited on. I think it's important that we recognize that to talk about looking for other sites or trying to figure out where we're going other than this town-owned land, and that includes the Orleans Elementary School as part of the town, right? We don't have any other option, right? So we're moving forward with design that the Orleans Elementary School will agree on because it's critical as part of our charge to ensure that the existing facilities, being the Orleans Elementary School, can continue to operate safely and efficiently for the students, right? So that's why we're moving forward with this, because it's what we have control over as a town, and it will, without a doubt, include the Orleans Elementary School in that process.
Makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, update on OPM process and timeline. Is that you, Mark?
That is Mike Solitro.
It's Mike Solitro. Welcome, Mike.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Solitro, Special Projects in Town Manager's Office. Just a quick update from last week's timeline with some new information this week. Regarding our OPM, the RFQ OPM that was posted, the requirements require that the Central Register posting run for 14 days. We had our initial posting run in the Central Register under the Goods and Services publication on June 30th. We noticed this last week, and we republished running this Wednesday in the designer selection publication portion of the Central Register. So in doing so, we have extended the deadline from August 1st to August 8th. So that will impact when the proposals are received. It will also allow us to, or give us the opportunity to have a second site visit for anybody who only monitors the designer selection section of that publication. So we can anticipate a few other project managers seeing the project from this second posting. So we have a second optional site visit next Thursday, July 31st at 11:30. That has also been posted. We subsequently have pushed the addenda date and question submittal date for any interested proposers 1 week. The proposals will be in August 8th at 3 p.m. The main change for this committee, we had talked about August 4th being the target date to have the meeting with the proposal discussion taking place. Instead, those documents will be uploaded on the 8th in Dropbox for your review, and that discussion will probably take place August 11th. So it'll be a week later that will be here. Our original target date for a recommendation from this committee to the town, as well as the selection, was September 15th. We don't anticipate that changing, so we still are going to keep the overall timeline with the 15th being the selection, as well as the recommendation from this committee to the town. I identified committee interviews, if needed, 3 possible dates of August 18th, the 25th, and the 8th. Will be difficult to say if we're going to need all of those, if those will work out with project manager timeline or their availability. The big thing I'm just here to say is that we are reposting based on a posting error for the wrong section of the central register piece with the state. It's corrected. It will run live this week. We're going to have it run for the 14 days. August 8th will be the new end date, and we still are targeting the 15th as the selection date. So I apologize for the change in schedule. That is the reason why, and I can answer any questions.
Any questions? Mark?
No question, but just that the change here would maybe mean that instead of us meeting on the 4th, which was
Right,
our
I-
intentional, our next meeting, we would bump that to the 11th and we'd meet 2 weeks in a row there. 11th and 18th.
So can we deal with that in items for future agendas?
Sure.
Instead of right now? Any questions regarding,
Yes, I have a question. So are we still thinking that, I think I had in my head, and it could be wrong, that we were supposed to be bringing this to town meeting in the fall with a full design and a request for the whole budget? Is that correct?
I think the date of town meeting right now is being kept flexible for us. Is that correct, Mark?
Relatively speaking, we're looking at a November date for town meeting in the fall.
So
So
to
that-
answer your question, we think so?
But so that's like, this is just the OPM, then don't we have to get an actual designer of the thing? And then make a design?
And I think we'll learn along the way that may very well be the case, Emily.
Okay, so we're just
Right
not
now,
dealing with that right now, okay.
We don't want to be the ones to push it out. We're going to
Get
let
it.
the designer tell us it has to be
I get
pushed
it.
out.
Okay, so calm down, I got it.
I think a lot more things will become clearer as this process
the
goes on.
OPM,
The
yeah.
OPM comes on board, we'll have more of those concrete pieces to work with.
Any questions for Mike?
One last thing I'll mention, with the Dropbox, I'll have it set up for each of you beforehand, and I'll have an evaluation dropped in there between now and our next meeting. So if you have any I'll have instructions in there if you can't access it, but you should be able to open it and print a PDF of the evaluation form.
So will this be like a spreadsheet explaining the numbers that we,
It's taken right from the actual RFQ. There's a 2-page criteria to add just 0 to 100. You just read the criteria, and then 0 to 5 or 0 to 10 points based on what's written there.
great,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, items for future agendas, other than Mark bringing up the fact that we might not have to meet on the 4th, should we discuss if there's anything we need to do? It seems like we're waiting. If we're in a waiting game right now, that maybe we should consider changing the meeting date from the 4th to the 11th, as Mark suggested? Unless there's,
Just that 1 week. Go out of cycle that 1 week.
go out of cycle that 1 week, only to try and help Mike with the schedule that he's working on.
Well, they said the interviews are the 18th, right? The 18th, the 25th, and 9/8, 3 separate times?
Yeah, it's on the second
Yeah.
page, yes.
Yeah, 18th, 25th, or the 8th of September.
So we're going to do this in 2 or 3 separate times? Instead of doing it one shot? Each person gets 20 minutes, a half an hour, and then you roll on the next one?
Just with the committee of this size and then having 3 project managers' schedules all line up, I just put the 3 Mondays that were not Labor Day as far as potential dates. It is possible that we cannot line up everybody for a Monday, so I know it's easy to say, but as much flexibility in that window as possible. Ideally, we could have all 3 of them, or up to 3, on the same night, the 18th, for example. Just from scheduling in the past, I don't know how likely that is going to be.
And Peter, you've been on previous committees. I was on the Town Hall Building Committee. 3 interviews in one night might be too much. I mean, based on what I went through before.
Yeah, when we interviewed architects for the feasibility, yeah, we did one at a time.
The main determinant there is that the interviews are similar across the board, or that there's a standard process for everybody, so there's no time minimum, but you'd have to ask, or at least have the same procedure for each. So most likely 3 interviews would be a lot, but you're not required to interview everybody for 2 hours, let's say.
Yeah, just thinking, spacing them out a week apart and trying to accurately compare the 3 firms, I think it's difficult to do. I think having them all in front of you, half an hour apiece, or 45 minutes total, and then at the end of it, you have a better idea because they've all been in front of you at that time. I also get worried too, giving individual firms longer periods to prepare for the interview and how that could be perceived, right? I mean, at one point, you're going to give the last person an additional 2 weeks to prepare for the interview.
And you will have seen the 2 previous ones.
Yeah. So I think you run into a possible issue with that.
Oh, good point. Well, maybe we'll be lucky. Maybe we'll be able to narrow it down and, so would people be adverse to having a marathon session if we set it up that way?
I would prefer that.
Yeah, I think I would too.
So if at all possible, we would prefer to schedule them all on one of those dates, I guess, is what we're saying. Does that,
I think if the next time we meet is if we kept it the 4th, right, and we didn't do the 11th, if we kept it the 4th, one of the items on the agenda should be to brainstorm and develop what we think the interview format should be. Right, and that would allow us to do 3 in a row.
Yes, but we'd still need to meet on the 11th because we'd need to select 3 to interview.
Yeah, correct, you're right. All right.
and you're going to have the evaluation that we're going to be using to choose them, when will that be available to us?
That's in the actual RFQ.
Okay.
I will upload that to Dropbox, at least, let's target the 1st, so you've got it there, so you can make sure you have access, you can open it. But we will not have the proposals in hand or available to open till 8th at 3 PM.
When we've done this in the past, I mean, there's a form, and you actually score them.
No, we did the same thing
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
this building, yeah. Well, then I would suggest that we go with August 11th and everybody familiarize ourselves with what Mike's going to put online in advance of that and take it from there.
Yeah.
So the 11th, we would choose the 3 to interview on the 18th. And then we would do all the interviews on the 18th. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, we
the
would do
25th.
all the interviews hopefully on the 18th or the 25th with, if we can arrange it, depending on how many we choose.
Okay, so it's not necessarily 3, we could choose more.
We don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, we don't know that.
okay, so 18th and 25th.
And then if we, between now and the 11th, if we all familiarize ourselves with the RFQ that is going to go online. So could I have a motion to reschedule the August 4th hearing to August 11th?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay.
David, I've got one item for, I think I'd like to put on for future considerations.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a discussion about net zero. It's part of our charge for the building, and I think everybody, I think needs to be real familiar with what's involved with that.
May I suggest that we bring an OPM on to have that discussion first, or, because,
Yeah, the OPM is going to be, that's going to be critical, but I think everybody should be familiar with what net zero means here. It's a huge part of this. It's a huge part of this.
right.
And I think once we start looking at it, I think we need to be more familiar with it.
Sure. I just think that having an expert here to talk through that would be helpful, as opposed to us just talking about net zero.
Yep.
Just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think our OPM might be the only person that could start to answer some of the questions I have, certainly.
We put language about that in the RFQ? Knowledge of net zero, building construction?
I don't know.
Well, it's part of our charge.
No, I totally understand, but if it's not in the RFQ, and they may not submit their qualifications and recognize
Okay.
their net zero
Yeah,
experience.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I think that's a good point.
My only point is that whether it be the OPM or the designer, we should have them be having that conversation with us, as opposed to us just talking in circles about what net zero is. That's just my point.
Agreed.
Okay, before we have approval of minutes, did everybody go online and review the conflict of interest? Everybody did their homework?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes for the July 14th hearing. Anybody have any questions or changes?
I have a change.
Okay?
In the end, where it says, item for future agendas, public comment, it says the item for this committee to meet with OES regarding new fire station, it actually was for NRMS. For the middle school, or for the
That's right.
middle
That's-
schools committee, not the OES committee.
So instead of OES, it should say NRMS.
Or not MS, but MNR.
And, yeah, NRMS,
RSC.
for the region, you're saying.
Region, yeah.
Regional School District.
School
Yeah,
district. that's-
NRS.
NRSD.
Yeah, sorry. I'm used to saying-
Got that, Laura?
I think we all said so.
Thank you.
No
Any
problem.
other changes?
That was the only one I saw.
I have a motion.
Move to approve the minutes as amended?
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay. Peggy, we are now going to adjourn our meeting in the town hall and take it up again at the fire rescue station.
All right, I'm taking you off the air.
Thank you.